The 7-star Sword Art Festival will commence in 2 days' time, which has caused this quiet coastal town to be overrun by spectators. Ikki is currently getting dressed when Shizuku knocks on the door. With his shirt still undone, he lets her inside, where she immediately freezes up. Ikki compliments her outfit, causing blood to gush out of her nose. Ikki rushes to help, but Alice orders him to cover up his abs. With the crisis averted, Alice takes their photo, and you find out that Toka and Utakata are still unconscious from their battle against Akatsuki. Now, Alice doesn't expect the criminals to attend tonight's banquet, but she urges them to still be careful. Stella is still training with Miss Saikyo as this lowly F-rank knight enters into the party, immediately becoming the center of attention. Ikki revels in the fact that his dream is finally becoming reality, but he snaps back as Shizuku spots a member of Akatsuki. It's Sarah Bloodlily, aka Bloody Da Vinci, who beelines straight for Ikki, where she begins aggressively feeling up his body. He doesn't sense any bloodlust, so he allows her to continue, that is until she rips open his shirt. Sarah exclaims that he's perfect, stating that it was love at first sight. She demands he poses nude for a painting, but of course he refuses. She threatens to forcefully rip off the rest of his clothes, and Shizuku flying dropkicks her across the room. Ikki holds back his sister as a second member of Akatsuki cuts in, explaining that Sarah's body is extremely fragile, hence the nickname Bloody Da Vinci. Kazumatsuri then offers Ikki a job as her butler, just before exiting the banquet. A third member of Akatsuki then enters into the situation, openly admitting to being an assassin. Shizuku is shocked she'd say that, but Tatara doesn't have to worry because the Prime Minister is covering it up. To make amends, she hands Shizuku a plate of food, which Ikki knocks to the floor, noticing it contained a poisoned razor blade. Ikki and Tatara both materialize their devices, but are interrupted by the 7-star king, Yudai Moribashi. He's flanked by the first and second runners-up, and the king dares Tatara to take one more step forward. Kaga, Panzer Grizzly, comments about the newcomers being awfully feisty this year, before gulping down the poisoned food and blade without even flinching. At this, Tatara begins losing her nerve, and she's suddenly caressed by a woman in a lab coat, stating that Tatara needs to improve her diet. This doctor prescribes her some pills. She tries dropping them, but she's unable to move her arms. Shizuku recognizes this to be the medico knight Kiriko Yakushi, the best doctor in all of Japan. Ikki wonders how she just appeared like that, causing Shizuku to explain it to be a similar technique as her Aoi Rine. Tatara is then harassed by the Sword Eater, before finally fleeing the banquet. Ikki promptly thanks everyone for backing him up, and Moribashi states that he'd lose his cool as well if someone threatened his little sister. Ikki then mentions that he's glad Akatsuki Academy is participating this year, as they're sure to be uniquely powerful opponents. The 7-star king couldn't agree more, and he then invites Ikki and Shizuku to have dinner with him tomorrow. In the next room over, Director Kurano asks why the Prime Minister is choosing to support Akatsuki Academy. He gives a surface-level answer, followed by her revealing that the Prime Minister is attempting to sever all ties with the Mage Knight Federation. Tsukikage admits that he's trying to break out of the alliance, as he's tired of fighting wars that have nothing to do with Japan. Kurano states that as a small island, Japan needs allies. However, Tsukikage believes they're strong enough to fend for themselves. The following day, our group heads downstairs, where they meet up with Moribashi. Ikki introduces Alice, who immediately begins flirting. The king is caught off guard, followed by them discussing Stella's absence, just before Moribashi leads the way through town. It turns out Moribashi was born here, and as such is seen as the town hero. Shizuku even points out that he's drawing more attention than Stella, and she's literally royalty. Ikki explains that it's all due to the tragic incident that had once ended Moribashi's career. He, however, made an impossible recovery, so now everyone sees him as the star of the town. Ikki then notices a presence following him, but they just arrive to the restaurant. They immediately realize this to be owned by Moribashi's family, and they enter inside to a packed dining room. Moribashi's sister is shocked to see her brother's round 1 opponent, as she holds up a notebook greeting them. They learn that Komei's mute, though it's due to a mental problem rather than a physical ailment. They're then shown to their seats, just as Moribashi apologizes to step away to help with the restaurant. This table just so happens to be beside Kiriko and Yagakoro, who are discussing Moribashi. Kiriko turns out to be the doctor who healed his injuries, and she came here today for a routine checkup. You see, Yagakoro thought they were in a relationship, causing Kiriko to state that she prefers younger men, much like Kuragane. She even offers Ikki a free pre-match physical, which Shizuku doesn't take kindly to. The food arrives, which is unanimously determined to be delicious. Moribashi gladly says the bill's on him. Ikki tries to decline, so the king declares that Ikki can pay him back with a good fight tomorrow. Ikki promises to return the favor by being the best opponent Moribashi has ever faced. Now joined by their new acquaintances, they head for the train station where you learn that Kiriko can read and control people's bodies by manipulating the blood within them. Yagakoro then brings up a rumor that Ikki actually won a fight against Edelweiss the Twin Wings. He reveals that he lost. She wants to know the details, but he honestly only remembers waking up in the hospital. Then upon arriving to the train station, Ikki chooses to say goodbye, as he's planning to take a detour. Alice offers to join him, but is immediately turned away. Though once he's gone, Kiriko expresses that it's such a shame that Ikki is going to lose tomorrow. Shizuku asks why, so she reveals that Moribashi's desire to win is just leagues above Ikki's. After entering into a park, Ikki calls out to his pursuer, which is revealed to be his rank A brother. Oma Kuragane orders Ikki to drop out of the 7 stars, asserting that Ikki is holding back Stella's potential. This makes Ikki realize that Oma only cares about raw magic power, and he declares that even if he's weak, Stella still loves him. Oma attacks with wind strikes as Ikki ducks underneath them. They lock blades. Ikki leaps backwards as Oma's slash tears open the ground. Ikki asks what Oma did to change his body, but instead of answering, he conjures a violent windstorm. This technique removes all oxygen from the area, leaving Ikki with no choice but to end this with Ito Shura. Charging at his brother, Ikki prepares to dodge the incoming slash, but his body freezes up, leaving him with no choice but to block. He's launched backwards, slamming into a wall, shattering both of his arms. Oma states that Edelweiss apparently left Ikki a parting gift, as he prepares to end this fail rank blazer. Now Ikki is still unable to move and can only watch as his death approaches. Take a bite, Tiger King! Kusanagi is neutralized as Moribashi now stands between them. He came to return Ikki's forgotten handbook and wonders why 2 brothers are trying to kill each other. Oma leaves, so Moribashi asks why Ikki froze up, but instead of answering, he tries his best to remember his battle with the Twin Wings. After getting healed, Ikki returns to his room, where he spends all night contemplating what could be wrong with him. Let the 62nd 7 Stars Battle Festival begin! Toka wakes up in the hospital to find Kanata by her side and Utakata still asleep. The TV announcers state that Stella is late to her match and that her opponent, Icy Sneer, is asking to have her disqualified. Toka asks why Stella isn't there, and Kanata explains that last she knew, Stella was training with Miss Saikyo. Then after confirming that Stella's train was delayed, the 7-star committee chooses to postpone her match until later. Kanata then mentions that Ikki's first match will be against King Yudai Moribashi, and Toka gives Ikki a 40% chance of winning. It's the fact that Moribashi specializes in nullifying magic that actually works to Ikki's advantage. Now, at the 7 stars, our group is spectating from the stands when Ikki is called to the waiting room. Shizuku is complaining about Stella when Kiriko arrives, stating that Ikki is way too calm for a warrior. It's almost as if he's forcing himself to relax. Now jumping back in time to the night before, we resume with Shizuku demanding to know why Moribashi is stronger than her brother. A few years ago, Moribashi's family was headed to the park when they wound up in a train crash. Moribashi lost both of his legs that day, and his little sister Kome blamed herself and refused to ever speak again. Only 6 months went by before Moribashi came crawling to Kiriko, wanting her to give him the ability to walk again. She did so by pulling cells from all over his body in order to create a fresh pair of legs. This process was successful, but severely weakened his muscles and bones, which resulted in daily fractures and tears during the months of intense rehabilitation. 3 months into this hellish recovery, Kiriko even begged Moribashi to let her reverse the process, because his screams of pain were even beginning to seep into her nightmares. He, however, refused to quit, because the last words his little sister ever spoke to him were,
"I'm so sorry."
Present Shizuku then notices Kome sitting in the stands across from her. If you're enjoying this video, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next. Moribashi is aware that Kome feels responsible for the accident, which is exactly why he must prove to her that he's stronger now than he was before.
That last match was rather disappointing, since it was won due to an out-of-ring violation.
Agreed, but the king just entered the arena and I mean listen to that crowd.
Bashi! You know, I underwent limb regeneration surgery myself, but I gave up after 3 days of excruciating pain.
And to think King Moribashi successfully endured that hell. Anyways, another one just entered the arena.
Shizuku then asked Kiriko to examine Ikki a second time, and she's glad to report that he's now in perfect fighting condition. The match begins, and Ikki sprints toward his foe, though he pauses due to the sheer presence of the king. Ikki dashes in anyways, but is immediately pushed away by the spear.
Wow, that one powerful attack was enough to drive Kyryogane back.
Actually, that one attack was 3 unbelievably quick thrusts.
Ikki approaches once again, this time casually stepping into the spear's range. Moribashi unleashes his attacks, which Ikki beautifully dodges. The king steps away, asking if the warm-up is over, and Ikki genuinely thanks him, saying he feels perfect. Moribashi then gets serious, and Ikki plans to exploit the king's biggest weakness. While watching this, Toka points out that Moribashi never uses sweeping attacks with his spear, which Kanata interprets to give Ikki an upper hand. However, that'd only be true if Moribashi was a normal opponent. Ikki lunges in once again, successfully dodging Astral Trio. That is until the final strike seems to curve toward him, slicing his ear.
With that, King Moribashi has successfully drawn first blood.
And Ikki notices that the announcer didn't mention anything about the curving spear. Alice exclaims that Ikki almost got Moribashi, but Shizuku doesn't believe that Ikki simply missed a dodge. Ikki is now running away, doing everything he can to analyze his opponent. It takes a few minutes, but he finally determines the curving to be a non-magical technique. And if the spear's not actually bending, then the solution is simple. Ikki confronts the spear head-on, parrying the strikes instead of dodging. With this brute force strategy, he begins inching closer and closer to the king.
Somehow, another one seems like a completely different person than before.
But wait, look at that!
Just as he gets within striking range, Ikki purposely allows an attack to pierce his shoulder. Shizuku is shocked, and Alice points out that Intetsu has a bite taken out of it.
Well, devices are made of magic, so it makes sense that Tiger King can nullify it.
Yeah, and if the device snaps, the blazer will be rendered unconscious.
Ikki took that hit in order to protect his device, and he realizes that Moribashi purposely lured him into that trap. Ikki then thinks about how he's unable to dodge due to the curving spear, and he's now unable to parry due to Tiger Bite. Shizuku can't believe that Ikki's being toyed with, but Kureno has different thoughts. She points out that Moribashi was counting on that last attack to decide the match, which now means he has nothing left to hide. Ikki then declares it to be his turn to surprise the king.
Looks like Kyryogane is trying the same charge a third time, and ouch! He's run clean through.
The afterimage vanishes as Ikki appears on the opposite side within striking range. Moribashi knows he can't react fast enough, but surprisingly his spear strikes first, and the crowd goes wild. Moribashi is aware that Kurogane froze up again, but he decides it'd be disrespectful to take it easy on him. Kiriko exclaims that Ikki definitely slowed down, and that the cause might be fear due to his fight with Edelweiss. Kureno confidently declares this to be wrong, and that she knows exactly what's happening. Ikki is now extremely frustrated as he feels helpless and broken. Then due to his reduced speed, he struggles to flee, taking numerous wounds in the process. Outside the stadium, the spectators feel as though this match is already over, but a lone girl has total faith in the worst one. Ikki slips on a pool of his own blood, yet the king doesn't capitalize. Moribashi recognizes that he's had 5 opportunities to end this, but it's Ikki's unbelievable fighting spirit that's forcing him to hesitate. Though after remembering his precious little sister, the king steels himself to finish this. The king attacks as Ikki spots his impending defeat, which brings back memories from his duel with Edelweiss. He suddenly remembers copying her sword style in their final clash, and he pulls those memories into reality. With inhuman speed, he passes by Moribashi's spear, delivering a deep wound to his side. Alice and Shizuku are ecstatic, as Kureno explains that Ikki's body had been unconsciously trying to mimic Edelweiss, but he just now remembered how to do it. Moribashi comes to, picking himself up off the ground, asking what the heck just happened. Ikki apologizes for taking so long to sort himself out, just before vanishing, landing numerous more attacks.
My eyes can't even keep up anymore.
And looks like the king has abandoned attacking in favor of defense.
Ikki begins chipping away at the magical armor, and Shizuku watches Kome leave the stadium. Kome really doesn't want her brother to get hurt while trying to help her, and Shizuku arrives revealing that Kiriko already explained everything. Shizuku states it's an older brother's job to care for their younger sister, so it's perfectly okay to rely on them. She then walks away, but not before asking Kome what it is she really wants to do.
Moribashi's armor has finally gave way.
And yet, he still refuses to fall.
The king tries leaping away, but he's cut again and again and again. Ikki activates Itoshura, just as Moribashi hears a familiar voice.
Go!
Now reinvigorated, Moribashi throws his spear and the last of his magic, launching one final tiger bite at his foe. Kurno says this is bad, since Ikki is moving way too fast to dodge. He takes the hit directly to the chest. It was another afterimage, and Ikki descends from above to deliver the winning blow. Moribashi then falls to the ground.
Keep on winning.
The crowd roars with the conclusion of this incredible battle, and Ikki walks away with his head held high, though he finds a lone woman with crimson hair blocking his exit. Stella apologizes for the delay and congratulates him on the hard-fought victory. She then enters into the arena to find that her delayed match will commence right now. Icy Sneer, however, demands for Stella to be punished for her tardiness, but the committee doesn't agree. Stella, however, backs Icy Sneer's statement, declaring that her punishment will be to battle all the winners of Block B in a 4 vs 1. Icy Sneer didn't want anything this extreme, but she's well aware she stands no chance of winning in a fair fight. Ikki frantically asks if she can really win against Icy Sneer and 3 members of Akatsuki. She openly admits to being unsure, but she absolutely refuses to let the members of Akatsuki go unpunished. With the rage for her injured friends boiling over, the Crimson Princess boldly struts into the arena. A quick shout out to my 2 newest patrons, Hikari and Joseph.